All right, I am back, sort of, safe and sound. Long ways from home. There's a bit of traffic background sound. All right, but it's not too bad. Probably drives me bonkers more than it drives you guys bonkers, right? Anyway, what am I doing? A lot. I'm gonna be in the woods tomorrow with people that I know and trust. Meeting some new people as well. Should be interesting. I'll be making videos along the way. And what else? I have reached out to someone who I believe has been capturing these beings on film, videotaping them. I sent out an email introducing myself to this man. I believe him to be sincere, and I'm going to see if he would like to come here and let me ask him a shit pile of questions and have that conversation and make it available for all of you guys. That's my plan. So, let me adjust this camera for one sec. There we go. I was looking up at the camera. This is good now. Yeah, anyway, as I go along on my ride gathering knowledge and sharing the voices of people with all of you, I mean, I'm pretty certain we can come to the conclusion by now across the board that this is definitely not an unacknowledged gorilla or monkey running around the forests and mountains of the world, right? And the more and more I learn, I want to look at things from a different angle right now. Here's a different angle, all right? Whoever these people are, these beings, a parallel existence, whatever it is, so far from what we've seen and what we've heard, and especially from some of these images that I've been sent to me, this man's been capturing, this native guy, rurally, the quality of life that these beings apparently have, you gotta admit, if it's compared to ours, not talking politically, but enjoying lifetime, there's just something missing. Something's very confusing. The images this man has been capturing are very similar to what Scott Carpenter caught. The images he caught for quite some time. And how Scott did it was he just put a camera on his backpack, faced it behind him, hit record, and went hiking. And then he went over the videotapes later. He came up with some pretty disturbing images. Some of them almost look cartoonish, but he came up with it. That was what was revealing themselves on his videos. But anyway, what I'm saying is, aside from the usual questions we have, let's just say these beings are existing alongside us, doing whatever they're doing. Their quality of life sucks ass. Right? Don't you think? Furthermore, from what human beings typically think as beautiful, warm-looking, good-looking, whatever you want to call it, these beings are frickin' butt ugly. Not attractive at all. Somewhat offensive in a way from most of the images that I've seen and I would accept as true, real, whatever. But when you think about it, look at it from that obvious, different angle that not too many people talk about, whatever sentence these beings have been given to live the way they are living, it's like it could be considered worse than, I don't know, an escaped convict. You're in hiding all the time. You can't trust anybody all the time, right? Or like back in World War II when the Jewish people were had to hide or they'd be killed. They were hidden in basements, hidden in false walls, hidden in attics. Couldn't be caught, couldn't be seen because they might die. What a shitty existence, right? But then take a next step further. These beings are literally crawling around on the frozen, dirty, filthy ground, sneaking up on a human being in rural Alberta and many other places in the world. No leaves in the trees, snow on the ground, oil field machinery trucking by, which is filthy, noisy, and annoying. Picturing myself choosing to live that way, why would I do that? That's got to be hell on earth. Don't you think? And numerous of these beings are being reportedly seen and recorded in a tiny area. And these tiny areas are surrounded by man, industrial man, oil field equipment, trucks, nonstop noise, stink, of the gases around there, the sour gas, everything. It's just what a shitty life. They don't appear to be thriving and enjoying life in a community, in their own community, with what you might consider their own kind or their own people, their own tribe, whatever they are, their own community. They're not hanging out on a sunny day on the side of the river, tubing down the falls in the summertime, playing on the beach in the sun, which this planet is basically built for, should be, enjoying yourself and everything it has to offer. But these beings don't appear to be. Not that we know of, unless they have somewhere else they go, and they all hang out and have a lot of fun, and maybe visiting us and doing this weird shit is a form of entertainment. I don't know. I'm not certain yet about that department, but I'm just saying is so far, there's nothing about these beings that I would be jealous of, except maybe potentially they have the ability, which I believe is true, to be seen by us or not. There's something there that I would be jealous of. That skill, possibly communicating with somebody across the land without using a cell phone. I could definitely handle being able to do that. Knowing somebody's demeanor, I think we already know that. Knowing somebody's demeanor and their thoughts before they even get out of their vehicle, that would be something else. But I do believe our sixth sense covers most of that to a point. But what I'm saying is, let's just say these are intelligent beings with speech, family, a life. Well, it sure looks like a shitty one. Don't you think? Why? And if I was that being, and with all the skills, and I didn't need fire, and I could run around in bare feet and exist no problem, you wouldn't see me in the middle of the oil patch in Alberta. You wouldn't. You wouldn't see me beside human beings anywhere. I would remain absolutely remote so I could just hang out in the sun and go fishing and go hiking and do whatever. Do whatever it is that makes you feel good during this lifetime on this planet. That's pretty confusing, isn't it? And then we have there's a lot of people, a fair amount of people have come into contact with me, and allegedly they are in contact with these beings. And there's a handful of these people who claim to have this warm and fuzzy and loving connection to these beings. But what I'm observing is it doesn't matter who you are, what your stance is, and what the demeanor of these beings are, nobody's having a fluid conversation with them. To my knowledge, a lot of people are getting feelings, a lot of people are getting the odd sentence, a lot of people are saying allegedly they have a message for humanity for $150, I'll tell you. There's all sorts of shit across the board of people allegedly in communication with these beings. But so far, we don't have any of these beings sitting down on the bench beside a human being, sharing a beer, having a sandwich with each other, and sharing conversation and answer questions. We don't have that. Why is that? Why is that? What do you think? Right? So far we have these beings existing, scaring the shit out of human beings, more than not. Curious enough to look in people's windows, follow them around, leave evidence on their property that they're watching them and hanging out nearby, right? But not sitting down and saying, hey, come on over. We really like you guys. We're going to show you and tell you where these dogmen things are hanging out, exactly where and what they're doing. Said no one ever. There's a lot of confusing things going on to make me convinced that these beings are straight up with human beings. Not seeing it yet. And I'm also seeing that their quality of life could potentially be a real shitty one. Think about it. Think about where they are seen and what they are seen doing. Slinking around like a criminal, sneaking up, peeking, hiding. No communication. And not just laying in the sun, enjoying themselves with their friends, having a beer, having a sandwich, and doing fun shit. You know what I mean? Something's missing. Possibly, and I've said this since day one, we need to get in tune with our own true history before we can fully understand what the hell's going on. I believe that to be true, too. But anyway, moving along. I had to crack open an old email address of mine I used for years before I switched over to howtohunt.com. And I had to go in there to find an old sign-in thing. So, and I came across, somebody found me there and sent an email there, and I found it. Let's see what it says. It says, here goes. Give a bit of an introduction. Okay, let me start from the beginning. Hi, Steve. I recently stumbled upon your YouTube videos while checking out stuff about Bigfoot. This in 2021. It's very kind of you to share your experiences with all the rest of us. I've never known any guides or anyone of your kind of outdoor experience and really enjoy hearing you tell your tales. Needless to say, I subscribe to your dealio and can sit at my computer and watch episode after episode. Thanks so much. I imagine that you're swamped with emails as I see how people are so interested in hearing you, and I hope that you don't feel like I have wasted your time by sending this. I noticed you have an unusual name, at least one I haven't heard before, and would be interested in knowing anything you may want to share about your family or how you wound up in Canada. I wouldn't care if you shared my first name, but please do not my last. My name is blank blank. I'm 63 years old. Whatever I have to share with you is probably not worthy of sharing compared to other stories, but I have also had some strange experiences happen to me. Also, for your info only, is that this happened in blank blank drainage east of, okay, gotcha. Here it goes. My family name comes from Norway. Grandparents came across in the boat after World War II. Here goes. I live in this blank blank in blank. You wrote down again and you didn't want to share it. I've always enjoyed horses and have owned them most of my life. One summer, about 80-81, I worked for the local pack station in the Sierras above where we live here in the valley. I got to know the local trails pretty well, and it was quite comfortable to go trout fishing by myself after working there. The trip would usually last a couple of nights. Besides hearing the occasional wood knock, I've gotten super creeped out for no reason. One time I was riding along and dropped into a little valley that had a sheer cliff on one side, about 300 feet straight up. I noticed this big cliff and just got a super creepy feeling. I made a U-turn like pronto and got the hell out of there and found another place to go. The rest of that trip was uneventful, but I will never forget that. I used to take my horse up a trail that was normally only used by foot traffic and have had some stuff happen there. On the first couple trips, I made it upriver, a godly distance, about maybe 2 to 3 miles, shaving to cut stuff out of the trail as I went. I made 2 trips about 2 weeks apart. The fishing is great up there with lots of brown trout and rainbows. I think I didn't go back until the next summer, and there are trees pushed down across the trail. Trees pushed down, you said. The trail runs along a steep hillside where you can't easily get above or below. I never noticed any trees that had fallen anywhere else, but they always seemed to fall right across the trail, like trying to block it off to keep me out. I'd go up there and work at cutting away around these trees with my little bow saw. They weren't rotten pine trees or easy to push over kind of stuff, but the one that is super red, smooth bark, and doesn't get huge. I don't know what it's called, maybe manzanita? But it's a very hard wood to cut. The other trees that were in the trails were large oaks. It's at maybe 4,000 feet elevation where oak trees turn to pines. It was never a soft pine tree that would be easier to cut. The first time I was invited to go up there with a friend that had a couple of sons, like I did, and my friend and his kids walked in. Naturally, I took my horse and had a hard time getting over a tree in the trail, and eventually made it and got back to where my buddy was camped. My boys walked in with me, and they were maybe 8 or 9 years old at the time. Well, as we got to camp, and I got off my horse, I settled down for a few minutes. Across the river, maybe 150 to 200 yards away, on the other side of the river, and up the steep other side of the canyon, we heard a huge pop. It sounded so loud, it was almost like a big rifle, but louder. Wow. Then the next crash of a tree falling down. It was a nice sunny day, no wind. Kind of coincidental. Anyway, we stayed the night and went back home the next day without incident. I take pain pills and forgotten to bring them along, and was going to withdraw without them. So I didn't even fish. Sorry situation, I know. Yeah, that's pretty shitty. Oh, during the night, my horse got untied and took off back down the trail, and I had to borrow a light from my buddy to go find him. Luckily, he'd come to a fallen log across the trail and couldn't figure to pick his way around it to get farther, and I brought him back to camp. That's really bizarre because you know horses, they go back step for step the way they went up. No matter what, I've done it a gazillion times where they've never ever been before. You take a horse up the side of a mountain and you pick the route up the mountain and turn him around, give him rein. He steps step for step you took to get up. It's very crazy to watch. So that sounds odd to me unless there's a fresh tree pushed down in front of him to stop him. Luckily, he had come to a fallen log across the trail and couldn't figure to pick his way around it to get farther, and I brought him back to camp. Right before I got him, I heard a kind of like snuff sound out of the nose and just hoped it was a bear. I made some kind of casual reply and grabbed my horse and got back to camp. Be interesting to know what your horse's reply was to that, or his reaction to that was. I was fishing in the same place sometime later and started hearing this sound. I couldn't place it, and it kind of sounded like a helicopter, but it never changed. Thought maybe it was the water making some kind of weird noise. It never stopped, like to take a breath for a couple of minutes, if it was anything that breathed. It's just kind of a low woof, woof, woof. I got to feeling uneasy and pulled my fly in and started walking away from the river back to camp. I hadn't got far from the river, maybe 10 yards, and I jumped a mama quail with a bunch of babies. The babies were so small, they were just barely flitting along. And a more agile person may have just gathered them up by hand, and I thought, damn, I wonder if Bigfoot tries to munch on baby quail. That was the end of that trip. I hope you're not too busy because I want to tell you one more. This one is probably the best. I gone fishing again by myself out of an area that I was not familiar with, not too far from home. I've been riding for a good while, most of the day, and it was getting on in late afternoon and going uphill. When a herd of does started coming up behind my right flank. They were traveling a little faster than me and just kind of looked at me like, "What the hell are you?" They stayed near me for about 20 yards and then passed me and veered off to the right away from me and out of sight. What? There were maybe 8 to 10 does in this bunch and I never saw any buck. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. Just after that, maybe 200 yards ahead, there was some kind of a ranger cabin, I guess. It was unoccupied and I was out of water. So when I came to it, I looked around for some water supply and, not finding any, I went back down the trail, downhill towards where I might find water. My horse had put in a good day's work already and was sweating pretty good. And I stopped maybe 100 yards from the cabin and took the saddle off her and planned on letting her get a little rest before continuing on. I cracked open a can of Vienna sausages and was just getting ready to sit down and hang out with her when came a huge, loud pop from not too far behind this cabin. This was the kind of pop that took exceptional force to produce, and not just some rotten tree limb falling off or something like that. If I had to guess, I would say that the tree had to be at least 10 to 12 inches in diameter and not rotten at all. It was really loud. I thought no man could have made a tree break and produced such a sound. Right then, the rest stop was over and the saddle went on lickety-split. I made tracks out of that area. Eventually found a place to camp for that night, and the next day I got back home without dawdling and have not had occasion to return. I'm getting to the age where I'm feeling the results of my misspent youth, and I've been in a couple too many wrecks of auto and equine origins and trying to figure out places I can just drive to fish without having to hike my ass off to get there. I love to fly fish and would be honored to tie you up some flies of whatever description you like. Just give me a name and size hook or tell me what you would find usable. Give me a mailing address. Maybe it'll save you a little time to deal with all the emails. Keep up the good work and I wish you all the best, Mark. Appreciate you, Mark. Thank you so much for that email. I hope you're still here with us. I don't know how that got sent to that email. Unless I did it by, I don't know how that would have gotten in there, to be honest. Crazy. But I found it and I got him heard. Got him heard. Wow. So many. What else have I got here? All right, what's this? Missing goats, question mark. This might be older too. 2021. Hey Steve, my name is Alan Singer. I don't mind if you share my name. I've been watching your channel for the last year now, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You're sharing the truth that people need to know. For me, that is very important, and I just wanted to tell you to keep on keeping on. Thanks again for your time and help. Some backdrop. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm an avid hunter, fisher, and general outdoorsman. I personally never had a visual encounter with the beings, but as much as I've been in the woods, it would be hard for me to believe that I haven't been in close proximity to them or even observed by them. I've had the hair on my back, my neck stand up, and had a feeling that something just wasn't right plenty of times hunting alone in the woods. I, at the time, attributed to a big cat possibly stalking me, but it would not be a stretch for me to think that maybe it wasn't. Okay, on to my story. My father also lives in Albuquerque. He lives in the northmost part of town, and his house borders the Rio Grande River Valley. The river and the habitat stretch for probably 50 miles of undisturbed Native American land that runs pretty close to my dad's property. My dad has a thing for animals. He has 7 dogs and 6 cats. So 6 months ago, we bought 3 goats to live in his 3-acre yard. His yard borders a ditch that runs parallel to the river valley. I went by and interacted with these goats a couple of times, and they were very skittish to say the least. When I would walk up to them and with a handful of food, they would warily approach me, and if I so much as flinched, they would bolt. These goats were fast, and I tried to catch them, and it wasn't possible. Not even close, they were fast. They each weighed about 80 pounds. At night, my dad takes in the dogs to sleep inside because his wife thinks that hunting dogs should sleep indoors at night. Go figure. So in the morning, my father's wife went outside to feed the goats. Well, she found one of them dead, torn up like an animal had gotten to it, and the other 2 were gone, just vanished. When I spoke with my father about this, he thought that the coyotes maybe got them. Well, there's a huge problem with that. My dad has a 7.5-foot fence that wraps the whole yard. So I personally installed 6.5-inch chicken wire under the fence so the dogs couldn't dig out. So in my opinion, a coyote might have got the one in the yard, but a coyote could not and would not have went back for the other 2. It's not possible for a coyote to get these things over or under the fence. Moreover, I don't know a coyote in the world that wouldn't be satisfied with eating one of these things. They were big, and I thought maybe a person got them, but again, I could not catch these goats if I tried. I never thought of Sasquatch so near a big city, but there is enough habitat to sustain big animals there. I just don't know what could have got these goats. Thanks again for what you do, Steve. Keep on with the good fight. Alan Singer. Okay, Alan. Hope you're still here watching, man. And the fact that you emailed in here lets us know that you know it wasn't the coyotes. Right? Yeah, it's shitty. It's a shitty thing that some of these unknown beings, whatever they are, whoever they are, decide they are entitled to come in and take our family pets. Kind of sucks. And there you go. Here's another one. Answered several questions you've asked. Oh, all right. Hey, Steve, love your zeal and your help by bringing the other stuff that wasn't thought about or talked about as to arm our very, quote, Johnny come later to the party, end quote, or in layman's, you're pulling the kick me sticker off our freshman butt. I have not had any context to discover that I have had 2 experiences myself. Now, first you asked, why the Bible question? You can have the cure for the disease, the answer with proof, but as you have said yourself, even then, if the person is not going to believe it, then no pictures or proof or anything like that is, as Ryan Watt showed a Bible be truth, that in my personal experience is why they're not going to let this cat out of the bag. but you are seeing the extent of what secret knowledge does in evil's hands. My experiences are as follows. I live in Boise, Idaho. It's got a lot of canals through many parts. Well, about 10 foot up a tree on the other side of a 6-foot fence in the canal was a pair of glowing green eyes. More so than normal, this caused me to about lose my pee. I went back in quickly. I wasn't going back out with some cannon that I didn't own at the time, lol. I was convinced at the time it wasn't a raccoon, but more like a cougar, as its eyes, width between and size of and height. Well, that was in 2013. Fast forward to a couple of months ago. New location, still in Boise, and along the same type of canal. Bigger though. As I walking the dog, started to be stalked by 3 sets of the clearest, loudest mountain prairie grouse I've ever heard, and at 3 a.m. Not a normal thing, but you're the wildlife guy. You tell me, do grouse trickers or something do that? As for both of the canals, picture a grove of cottonwoods and willows, etc., along a creek, 15 or so across. Looks natural, like a regular habitat for whatever, and meandering throughout the town, and is covered for everything. As for why they are not letting this topic out, probably money. But these things render a death blow to evolution and provide proof the Bible is really accurate, and they're getting rid of anything like that. They made a mess of how the Bible is perceived, but the guy who made this cool, beautiful place and all the possibilities we choose to follow, good or evil, the Creator just wants those who want to talk to him to call out to him personally. It's an informal individual thing, but don't unless you want to hear back from him. Thanks for your help. Keep on kicking them in the balls. It's helping anyone who needs it. God bless you, brother. Please excuse my brevity. Okay, man, appreciate that email and your message. And it's shared. And what do birds parallel you and follow you at 3 a.m? No, they don't. No, they don't. They roost. They roost and they go into a coma. They go into such a deep coma on the roost, you can actually walk up and pick them up off the branch. That's exactly what one of those big bears is doing in my yard all last year with all those chickens that decided to roost in one of the trees in the yard. He just went up there and he grabbed one and go shred it, and then he walked back up, pluck the next one, because they're in a coma on the branch. They don't follow us and parallel us in the forest at 3 a.m. That I can say with confidence. Here's another one. Excuse me. Hi, Steve. My name is Josh. I'm from a small town in Colorado, and my experiences wasn't really a sighting as much as an encounter. My family and friends went up into the mountains, Pike National Forest, to play around. We're camping, sharing a tent with about 7 of us inside. Hope you didn't eat any beans that night. I had no idea of the time, but I guess about 1 a.m. or so. I'm a very heavy sleeper, but I trust my 6th sense explicitly. The world just went quiet, which is what woke me up. I opened my eyes and I listened intently. I started looking around in a groggy state and looked up to the top of our 10-man tent and couldn't see anything. My eyes wandering around the tent at my friends, all of them were currently passed out. I want to pause for a sec to clarify. My dad was Army and has always taught me to be honest, be confident in what you say or do, and above everything, trust your gut. I love those lessons people teach their kids. That being said, this is the first time I've ever said this to anyone. I was around 14 or so in high school and was a hefty big boy and have some pretty big hands. As I lay there waiting and listening to the sounds around me, I heard a twig snap on the ground behind us. As I snapped my head towards that sound and saw this huge shadow of a hand, and I mean huge hand, dragging along our tent wall. I put my hand close to it. At the time, I wore a size large gloves, and it was easily double that size. I looked around at my friends, still asleep, and it started circling the tent, dragging its hand along. As it got over my head, I did something stupid. I think, we've read this a long time ago. Oh well, I'm this far in. I reached up and smacked the hand There's a soft, surprised grunt. I could feel the stunned feeling, and then the soft, heavy sounds moving away from the tent. I went back to sleep and got up the next morning and looked around and saw nothing. I asked my dad, as he was the only one bigger than me present, if he had got up to pee during the night. He responded, "No, your sister was sound asleep all night and I didn't want to wake her. She was recovering from an ear infection." He asked why, and I didn't answer. I just said I was curious. My gut told me it meant no harm, but the size still amazes me. Anyways, I know I've rambled on. I've never shared this with anyone before. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. The place it happened, I grew up dirt biking all the time, felt like being watched a couple of times, but your channel has convinced me to come forward and share. Thanks for all you do. God bless. Feel free to use my name. Thanks for your time. All right, I don't think I read that one, because the one I recall reading was the guy slapped at it and it slapped back. I remember reading that experience. So there you go. Crazy you didn't mention it to your dad. It's just crazy to me. So many people. So many. And here is another. Appreciate you sending that. I wonder if you're still hanging out with us. It's amazing how many people have something like that happen. And, well, I didn't wake anybody up. I just went to sleep and I didn't tell anybody. It's so crazy to me. But it's so common. I'm not saying that to belittle anyone. It's just so common for people to react that way. Here's a photo of some inline tracks in snow. I emailed you once before about a sighting I had in the Northeast United States. I found these where I work, but do not want to disclose because I worked for the military. If you have any questions, please write back to me. And there is the barbed wire fence. Check it out. He took a picture on the other side of the fence of these prints that are in line. Do you see them? Check it out. There you go. Excuse me, you wrote into me before. God, when was this one? This one was a while ago too. All right, man. If you're still with us, follow the channel. Write it in again to me. Write it in to me again, your experience, because there's no email with this copied in here. Damn it, so I can't even search your name. All right. Who else? What do we got? Okay, here's another one. This is from our friend Robert Duvall, who has spent over 30 years intently digging into this and other topics, and has been sharing quite a bit with us, through me, and what he's discovered and learned. And I believe this man to be straight shooter. Steve, yes, you can use my name. I really haven't talked much about my adventures, but maybe it's time that I do that. My trips into their areas are intentional. That makes them less believable because, as a researcher, many people think you're making stuff up to boost your audiences or whatever. I'm in this to do research, not have an audience. I've avoided going to conferences for many reasons, but the biggest reason is that once your audience gets big, you end up spending time on that rather than research. I'm not into that. I'm not trying to grow my audience. It's not that I don't care, it's because getting to the bottom of this is what I'm after. Ditto. Everything that I've experienced in their areas has added to the legitimacy for me, and I've never experienced the kind of fear that is often shared on this channel. I'm also equipped with ways of handling them should they make things difficult for me, which has happened. And that is how I came to try letting them know that I am aware of their status with regard to us. That they do not have dominion, but we do, and putting boundaries on my sovereignty that I would not tolerate them trespassing. I do not recommend doing what I've done. It can be dangerous. I have 3 daughters. I'd taken 2 of them earlier in my first year into the Northern Cascade Mountains in Washington State to introduce them to the subject. The trip was full of solid, conclusive evidence and some one-sided interaction from them and tree knocks. They are always around. Never assume otherwise. Now, it was the fall of that year, and I was taking my 3rd daughter up into the same mountain but a different area of that mountain. It was a warm, sunny day, and she had been putting a lot of hours in. So it was for her a break from the grind. As it goes, I had to empty my bladder, and in the process, I injured my ankle coming down off of an embankment. It hurt like hell. We were just beginning the trek up the mountain road. We got up to where we were about 2/3 towards the top when my daughter asked if we could park so that she could take a nap. So I found a side road that was somewhat overgrown but still usable, and I parked the truck and got out. I hobbled over to an area really treed in, lots of moss covering the ground, which dropped off pretty quickly. I found a tree and sat down with my back against the tree and just sat taking in the beauty of this area. And after a few minutes of quiet, I began to hear noises down below me. I could not see down there because of the rounded and steep slope. I was not about to get up and attempt to see because by now my ankle was swollen and really banging in pain, and that sucks. So I sat there listening, rocks clacking, low, deep mumbling, more clacking followed by more mumbling. I smiled because it reminded me of my own talking to myself when I work on something. This went on for 20 minutes. I doubt this guy was more than 100 feet from me. I could hear it like it was maybe 50 feet, really. I decided to check on my daughter, so I got up and hobbled back to the truck. She was just waking up. We checked out a few more areas and then headed home. And that day she got to see the naturally impossible structures, see the twisted and torn or shredded brakes, hear the wood knocking close by, hear a whoop, and just generally understand the reality of the situation, which was all I was attempting to accomplish. Most of my outings are without incident, and that is just fine with me. My purpose is always to see what they do, document it, and get out. I was learning. The aspects of research that I stick to are the following list. Accounts. You learn from them. Patterns are important because repetition tells you that you are observing behaviors that are common. Breadth of types of interactions tell you how many of them avoid us versus how many of them actually interact with us in either positive or negative ways. We also get to see what the positive or negative engagement entails. It is a tool of understanding. Field outings. There's nothing that can replace getting into the field to see firsthand and understand what they do day to day. I've been all over the western U.S. and to the Midwest and northeastern U.S. I did outings in Australia and Malaysia. I've yet to be skunked. I have thousands of pictures and I have learned a lot about their day-to-day activities and their individual creativity. I've seen what the kids do, what the parents do, and have been around them on many occasions. I've never had a face-to-face, though I have asked for it. Language. Although I have not studied this myself, I know it is an important way to crack some of whom and what they are open. If it's a language spoken in ancient history, we can deduct a lot from that. That work continues by those who are driven that way. These people have asked to remain anonymous. History. For me, this is the keystone to the whole matter. Without the history, nothing has any context or meaning. If these matters were not covered in historical records, then we could be stuck. But they are. It is there that we get down to understanding what we're dealing with and what they are relative to us. That is where I learned how to handle them. That is where I learned how and approximately when they were created and by whom. I learned what the implications are for us and how that might play out in the future. Application of scientific method. If we could apply the methods and tools developed over hundreds of years, we could gain understanding on many different physical and energy aspects that these creations display. Verification. The knowledge gained is not supported without verification. It is difficult to convince, even with solid repeated evidence documented of a given type. If you have two types support each other, then the evidence transitions into real verification. The one part that covers the subject so well is the historical record. What could buttress that record? DNA work. Language too, but primarily DNA work. Since the record states what took place from a creation/genetic standpoint and what apparent process was involved, DNA work would either buttress that record, sorry, or not? It does. That work continues, and as it does, the answers get clearer rather than murkier. Without historical verification, we are stuck with theories and no context. Fortunately, that is not how it is evolving. While this encounter was not some big face-to-face encounter, it serves to indicate that we can sometimes stumble onto them and not be noticed. It gives us time to experience and enjoy the encounter and maybe learn from it. My huge thanks to Steve for this incredible dedication to those who would otherwise have not a place to dump experiences that changed their lives but had no one to talk to about it, no one to listen without that ridicule factor. It takes a lot of dedication on Steve's part to keep that going, to provide that place and his voice. Rob Duvall. Gotcha. Picking up what you're putting down. Appreciate you sending that in, Rob. And make sure you keep sending shit in too, all right, man? Don't be shy. You see a gap that needs filling, like you just did? Send it. Send it. I want to hear it. I want to hear all of it, right? I want to hear all of it. Now, what else? Yeah, the man in Alberta, I'm really interested in talking to him. He's captured some pretty amazing images, you know, like I took a snapshot of this one. Look at this. That is a reflection off of his sunglasses again, caught on video while he's walking, and he's videotaping himself walking in rural Alberta with nobody with him. And that picture backs up what I was saying earlier about some of the images that Scott Carpenter's well picked up. I mean, these aren't the most attractive beings on the planet as far as attractiveness goes. I mean, think about it, man. From what we believe to be pleasant looking, I mean, and I'm talking warm, kind. You can tell somebody looking at somebody. I'm seeing new people everywhere every day currently. And I'm coming across so many kind, warm souls just by looking at them, although everybody looks different. I'm seeing lots of people who probably wouldn't get hired to be a model on a magazine cover, but they're still very pleasant people, right? Which makes their appearance pleasant, warm, pleasant people. What would you say if you saw a being that looked like that, even a person on the sidewalk that looked like that? That's not going to win you any contract with Vogue magazine, is it? You know what I mean? And this one too. What's this one? And there's the other one he caught in his sunglasses. Look at that face. Right? What an odd looking being. So you've been given the, almost like the sentence being having to look like that, but then to have to act the way you're acting with your lifetime that you've been given. Slinking around on your belly in the woods in the middle of nowhere, but not in the middle of nowhere. I don't get it. It's confusing to me. I want to know what's up. This man has captured a lot in his travels. A lot. Look at this. And beside that, there was another face of another being, almost like an apparition or a like he said, it might even be a spirit. Who knows? You can see the two. You can see the side profile on the right side and the ghost-like, spirit-looking being on the other side. What the hell's going on out there? You know what I mean? Something is going on that we are having a real tough time wrapping our noodles around and accepting as fact. Something very, very bizarre to us because we haven't been taught about it at all. And if there's anything similar to this existence these beings are having, we have been taught that it's just fairy tales and folklore. And if you believe something like that's going down, you are a psychopath. Basically, that's how we have been raised. Why have we been raised? Why have we been raised that way? I have my own answers, I believe, but I'm asking you to all keep asking yourselves questions and try to find the answers for yourself and learn. Don't just sit there gazing at the screen. You know what I mean? There's so many patterns being shared from the people around the world here. It's silly. But if you listen, you start to put shit together. Opens up more questions, but it also all continually points to the fact that we are not, somebody doesn't want us knowing the truth. That's the bottom line. Somebody does not want us to know these truths. Period. All right? That's easy. That's very easy. Why? Why? Right? Try to think up some reasons why. Try to come up with, even make them up, but try to make up an answer that fits, but try to figure out why. Why does somebody not want us to know these truths? Why not? Come up with a good, plausible answer for that question. Make it up, but make one up that fits. That's how you slowly figure it out. Just try to figure out why, right? Why do they not? Does somebody not want us to find out these truths? But I'm going to find out. We're going to find out. I can't stop myself. It's too deep now. We're too deep, but we're getting there. Why? Why do they want us to not know? Figure that one out. That's a big, big question. If we can find out that solid answer, think about the questions that will be answered with that one answer. Think about it. If we can find out for certain who and why is behind keeping this hidden, we're going to find out so much it's going to take us to the next 50 flights of frickin' stairs in this knowledge journey. I'll tell you what. But anyway, that's it. I'm going. Finally got my new camera. Thank God I finally got it. Oh my God, I've got like 3 5D Mach 3 camera bodies. 2 don't work. And then none of them video record more than 30 minutes at a time, which is so frustrating, but one of my favorite cameras ever. I've got about 6 broken AX100 Sonys. Sucks ass. The last one, this one kaput. That's why I've been stuck to using just these GoPros, which I do like, but they're not good for what I like to do to share with all you guys. I like to make awesome outdoor videos. So I finally did it. I finally bought my new camera, and I got it in a box, and I got it with me, and I'm gonna go play with it, and thank God all my other Canon batteries fit it. Yes. So I've got 7 batteries that'll fit it, and this camera will record nonstop for up to 6+ hours. Yes. So now I can make quality videos again. Yes. Right? By myself in the middle of the woods and set up the camera anywhere, and I don't have to wonder if it's recording or not anymore. Yes. So I'm going to go play with that next, and tomorrow I am in the woods. In the woods in the southern U.S. Share my story at howtohunt.com. If you got something, anything you want to share with the people that you've experienced firsthand, or a family or a friend or whatever, and you want to share with the world, get it to me. I'll share it. You got some very, very important news the world needs to know, I'll share it. And I won't share your name if you don't want to share it. I'm so tired. Talk to you later.